I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
The Duluth School District has been asked again to sell a surplus building, this time to a private school. The school board's policy restricting such a sale is our top topic tonight.
A lecture next week will delve into the history of poverty in the United States and the ongoing efforts to bring it to an end.
And we'll have the week's business headlines and bring you a news file story from 25 years ago.
It's all coming up next on Almanac North. Well, hello again and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. And Julie, the leaves are turning right on schedule. Fall has begun.
Oh yes, I noticed a lot of them on Snively as I was coming into town tonight. It's beautiful, but sad to have summer over.
Yeah, it's getting pretty out there, that's for sure. All right, let's get started.
All right. Thank you, Denny, and welcome everyone. A Duluth School District policy not to sell surplus school buildings to competing schools is in the news this week. Many Rivers Montessori, a private tuition-based school in Duluth, would like to purchase one of the district's vacant buildings, but school administrators have rejected those offers, citing the previously mentioned school board policy. Here to talk about this issue is Annie Harala, chair of the Duluth School Board, and John Kliewer is chair of the Many Rivers Montessori Board of Trustees. And thanks to both of you for being here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Maybe you could start by explaining the district's policy to not sell buildings to competing schools, or what you would consider competing schools.
You know, back in the early 90s, there was a significant amount of community discussion that came forward about setting a policy to not sell to competing E12 institution, or early childhood to 12th grade institutions. It was built out of the base of a lot of community discussion, just as something the community wanted at the time. Earlier this summer, we had a similar discussion about the policy, and our current board did reaffirm that policy earlier this year.
Annie, if Duluth schools have a good program for students, for parents, for taxpayers, why does it fear selling its schools to other schools?
You know, I wouldn't say that the base of it is fear. I would say that the base of it is practice that we have done as a school district, and also we do talk about competition and making sure that, you know, just looking at the basis of where our community is heading and the number of schools that we have open, we believe that is there. And also we do know there's a lot of opportunities in our community that we need for redevelopment and housing within our community that we feel that these buildings could fill.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Kliewer, I imagine you were watching the situation as it unfolded earlier this year with Edison School and the Duluth School District. So it can't really be a surprise to you that the district didn't initially welcome your offer on the school buildings. Is that fair to say?
I would say it's a surprise. I think we're asking the school board to reconsider their policy. We think a one-size-fits-all policy is not the best serve for the community, for the school district, and obviously for our school as well. You know, every policy has its benefits and its costs. And you know, I think Annie could speak better to the benefits of the policy applied to us. We don't see many benefits, but clearly the policy has costs. And so when you have a one-size-fits-all policy, you can't make that balance. You can't balance against the costs of having buildings that go unsold, and they could receive revenue from institutions like ours. The cost of carrying those buildings, maintaining them, heating them, the cost of really also of goodwill in the community. I think there's a lot of disagreement about this policy. A lot of taxpayers have the opinion that the buildings should be put to their best and highest use, and they're most valuable as schools.
John, do you consider Many Rivers Montessori to be in competition with the Duluth school system?
Well, it's funny. We don't really think of schools as traditional competitors. You know, there's no one school that's the best fit for every student, including our school. So we think of schools more as collaborators, but there is some level of competition. But putting aside whether competition is good or bad for schools, no, I don't believe we're competitors. We are so different. It's like apples and oranges. And I would invite you to come and take a look. I'd invite Annie, the school board, to come and look at our school. You go into a traditional school and you have the rows of desks lined up, and the chalkboard, I guess now it's the smart board, and the teacher speaking. And I went to a traditional school and I loved it. I love the storytelling and hearing about things. You go into a Montessori school and it's an entirely different feeling. There's small groups of students working together on projects. It feels more like a research lab or a college university collaboration. It's what it feels like. Like I say, I think they really are such apples and oranges that they don't compete. I think that's common sense. I also think if you look at some statistically, the type of school that we are, a non-sectorial private school, we occupy a sliver of the market. And over decades, that sliver of the market hasn't changed the size of it. So there's not students coming from other sectors into ours, and we're not losing students into other sectors. So I really don't see us as a competitor with public schools. What we want to be is a collaborator with them.
Chair Harala, as you listen to some of these points being made, do you think there might be an appetite on the part of the school district to take another look at that policy and maybe consider individual cases rather than having it be a blanket policy?
The discussion needs to happen with the whole school board, and so I think that's a very important piece, and why when this was brought forward again, after having discussed this policy earlier this year significantly, 2 times in the public, it was decided after having a significant amount of discussion, it wouldn't be brought forward, and that is kind of where the piece came before the other day, before a lot of this information came forward. One of the pieces that I think a lot about is that when it comes to education, students should have a baseline of all the things that they're able to be offered. And so what I'm looking at, baseline and excelling, looking at our community, we need to make sure that our schools are strong and are supported. What I appreciate is that John and I, Mr. Kliewer and I are here both as people that are for kids, and I think at the end of the day, our schools are for educating children, are for educating students, and we may have different pedagogies and decisions on how we'll educate students, but we're still educating students in the best way that we possibly can.
Can you give us an idea of how much it's costing the taxpayer to maintain these empty schools?
Annually? There is a cost to maintaining the empty schools, yet we can say that if we do sell to a nonprofit school, it does not actually add to the tax roll, which was a part of the long-range facilities plan. So having a building that is housing or is some sort of redevelopment that's adding into the tax base for the city, county, and schools would be something that would be much more beneficial to our area.
Are we spending hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Around that, yes.
Around that.
And we are working as hard as we can. We had a number of offers, I know, on the central property early on, and I was on here a couple of months ago discussing that. It's the one thing that as a school district I would like to make sure that we, when it isn't come to day-to-day educating our students, it is something that I really work on.
And what's the school district doing to promote the sale of these schools?
Yeah,
what kind of, you've hired somebody to do that for you?
We're working alongside city and county partners. We had a really great meeting. After earlier this year, we kind of had a reset and met with economic development folks and a number of other folks to help us get our word out both locally and nationwide, and have a commitment from partners to do that. And we'll continue to work with that. We do have a transition in some of our staff in our district, and so hopefully with a new regeneration of that, we can continue moving forward with selling these buildings. And as Duluth grows and we see development happening, we hope that they're able to take on our buildings as well.
Now I understand that Many Rivers Montessori has actually made offers on 3 separate properties.
That's correct.
Talk about those offers, which schools you are potentially looking at or you would like to look at, and how you came to the numbers on the offers.
Well, we've made offers on the STC building, Rock
Secondary
Ridge,
Technical.
Yes, Rock Ridge and Nettleton. And I think all of our offers, we set the amount based on looking at the market, what the school district was asking, what other parties had asked and were willing to pay. In fact, when it came to the Nettleton offer, our most recent offer, we saw that a developer, George Sherman, the contract had ended with him, and we offered the amount he was willing to pay. We thought that had been agreed to, was a fair amount, so that's the amount we offered.
Mm-hmm. And I would say that with regard to even addressing the offers, we're not able to actually discuss the offers until the policy is set. So I know that's the piece of tonight, that with regard to, I know that there were offers that were made, but it did come back to that policy that had been reaffirmed by the board earlier.
If many rivers, John, cannot buy one of the school buildings, will you build someplace here in town?
Well, we're looking at building, but we're also talking to folks that have other spaces. We're talking to contractors and property owners. For us, we do have other options. We would much rather, though, buy an existing school building. As Annie said before, we're for the children, and to have our purchase price, instead of enriching a developer, go to the school district and be able to use for school programs seems like a much bigger win for us.
Regardless, Many Rivers is not going away. You'll stay here.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you heard a lot from taxpayers in the community since this issue has kind of bubbled to the surface again this week?
You know, I've heard a number of things on many sides of the issue. You know, immediately there were some negative pieces that have come through, people that are really passionate about the Montessori style of teaching, and that's wonderful. People are very educated and are excited about wanting to see these buildings move. I've also had a number of people reach out and say, thank you for reaffirming this policy. We were a part of the community when the policy was made, and we wanted to see it continued. And so I'm hearing from both sides, and I've been out in the community hearing a lot of different pieces of feedback.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was a request to meet with the board, I understand, on the part of the school. Is that going to happen? Has any conversation moved in that direction?
You know, it's been a whirlwind of a week. I can say that you know, I think that there's been a lot of discussion about it, and as a board, we have some ways that we can work together to make and continue to have healthy discussions.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Are you working with any of the school board members to try to get that conversation going a little bit more?
Well, we'd welcome discussion with all the school board members, and we'd welcome a meeting with the school board. Again, from our perspective, it does appear that this policy is sort of standing in the way of having substantive discussions. And we don't really see what the need is to have this one-size-fits-all policy. You know, if you were selling your home, you don't need a policy to decide who you'll sell to and who you won't. If a buyer comes forward and it's not the right fit, you don't sell to them. But I think the policy hangs around the district's neck and keeps them from evaluating offers more fully. So we're hopeful that the school board, we respect them, they'll take a look at the policy and really take a look at what's right for the community.
All right. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for coming in and talking about it. It's a very important issue for our community.
Thank you for this discussion.
Thank you.
Now, let's dig into our news file archive for a look at what was making news 25 years ago this week.
And for residents of Island View. For more than 50 years, this city's reputation as the gateway to the Voyageurs National Park has been legendary, but it's all coming to an end.
On February 27th of next year, the city will cease to exist.
By the narrowest of margins, residents have voted to dissolve the city, a move aimed to lure in more Koochiching County services like road paving along Gold Shores Drive. City Councilor Janice Takaichi.
Oh, it's a very emotional issue. People weren't just concerned about the economics of it. People were concerned about the history, loss of the history of the area.
And that prospect is unsettling.
If one person had voted the other direction, we would have had a second tie. And that leaves me very uneasy.
So for now, residents will have to make the best of it and hold on to what's left behind.
It's a nice name, Island View. Koochiching County, most people can't pronounce it, let alone spell it, so that's what we're stuck with.
For the people of Island View, the road truly ends here, and so does its status as a Minnesota city. But what won't end are the feelings residents have for this corner of the world. It's the kind of emotional investment that will never dissolve away. On the road in Island View with photographer George Marinsel, Ryan Davenport, KDLH News.
Well, the College of St. Scholastica's Alworth Center for the Study of Peace and Justice begins a series of lectures this next week. The series is titled Listening to the Voices of America. with the first lecture focusing on the history of poverty in America. It's a hard look at a difficult topic, but poverty continues to be a major problem here in the United States and locally. Joining us now with more is Tom Morgan. Tom is director of the Alworth Center for the Study of Peace and Justice. And Angie Miller is executive director of Community Action Duluth, which works to eliminate poverty. Thank you very much, both of you, for being here tonight. Tom, what's the idea behind your Voices of America lecture series? What are you trying to accomplish here in town?
Well, every year at the center, we put on a series of lectures about a topic that we think is of general public interest and is a serious topic. And usually, the topic involves answering a question. And we give like 4 or 5 different answers to a last year was, is violence inevitable in society? And we had a variety of people answering that question. This year, we're not really asking a question. It came to me that most of the information that we receive, not only from the media, but just from one another and all over the place, is from the majority perspective. And this idea of the Voice of America, that's the official radio and television station of our government. And I'm not speaking against it, but I suspect it's only probably one point of view. There are many other voices in this country. We all know they are, and I don't think they're all heard. So they're not coming here to answer a specific question. They're coming here to talk about their point of view.
So the lecturer is going to be talking about?
Well, in this case, this one, there's a variety of points of view, but or voices to be heard. But this one is going to be talking about the economically marginalized. Those are the voices that I think are not being heard. And so that's the first one.
Angie, you come face to face with people who are in poverty probably every day in your work with Community Action. What does poverty look like in Duluth?
Well, it has many faces, right? So it's the person who's taking care of your kids in childcare, the person taking care of your mom, grandma in assisted living, the person serving you food, checking out your groceries. I mean, it's our neighbors. And at Community Action, a large number of the people in poverty that we work with are single parents of young children. And they have a very high poverty rate in Duluth, along with African American and Native American households in Duluth also have a poverty rate of around 50%. So it's staggering.
What are the remedies? How do we eradicate poverty?
Great question. And it's some of those ideas and answers are in his book, actually. I mean, he has some good ideas, but for us, it's, he's looking at big public policy, and at Community Action, it's that often that one family at a time. How do we help people move out of poverty? So for us, it's helping people to get employed if they're not employed, if they're low wage, to get more training and have a career pathway to increase income. So the way to get people out of poverty is to raise their income. And so then there's all kinds of strategies around that. Some people are in poverty because they don't have transportation, right? So we have a car loan program. Some people are in poverty because they don't have their GED. So we have GED 2 nights a week in partnership with ISD 709 right at Community Action. Some people are in poverty because they have a criminal history and can't get employed. So we're going to have an expungement clinic at our office once a month in a partnership with the Volunteer Attorney Program. So there's like many, many strategies. And for some, people, they're in poverty due to prevalent racism in the city of Duluth. So we have training for employers on embracing diverse workforce. So you can see there's many complexities to poverty, what causes poverty and what helps people get out of poverty.
And you mentioned the book, and that was the book by Sasha Abramsky, the author who is going to be speaking in this first of the lecture series. Talk about his message, because we were talking a little bit before the show, and you said that some of his ideas are fairly controversial.
Well, there's no question they're controversial, and he has ideas that connect with, major policies that this government operates in. Angie touched on, well, maybe you didn't, but one of the causes for poverty is lack of health care, lack of accessibility to health care. I think that's true, isn't it? And so he addresses that. We're not doing that very well in this country. I just read in the newspaper, if I might that about 11,000 people in the Duluth Superior metropolitan area or statistical area do not have health insurance. Still, today, right now. They're one illness away from poverty. The other controversial things is changing the tax laws, making taxes less regressive, providing guaranteed family incomes for everybody, bringing back some of the policies that we've walked away from back in the days of Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty, and so on. I mean, these things have major economic and political ramifications, but these are his suggestions. And stop giving block grants and give money to actual programs. That's another one of his suggestions.
So when you bring in a speaker like this, are you hoping to kind of stimulate some conversation on both sides of those?
Oh, absolutely. That's
issues?
The point. One thing that we are not is we're not a political party at St. Scholastica, or we're not intentionally advocating a particular point of view. We are trying to bring in people who have serious solutions or serious responses to interesting problems. And after the lecture is on Tuesday, the following Monday, and we do this after every lecture, we have what we call a talkback session. And we invite people to come from the community and chew over what they've heard and talk about it. And I always ask somebody else to facilitate it. And that's one of the reasons that I think we're inviting Angie even on this program, because the talkback session will be facilitated by Angie, who certainly knows a lot about poverty, and also by one of my colleagues, Bob Hoffman, who's a professor of economics. And so I think he can speak to the economic implications of this. And he's also, by the way, on the board of CHUM. So he's got a particular interest in poverty.
One really interesting piece of news that came out last week was the reduction in poverty rate across the country got a lot of news attention. And in Duluth, it actually went down 5% from 2014 to 2015. And that, I'll tell you, has not happened in decades. We have been stuck at a 22% poverty rate for years, which is twice the poverty rate for the state of Minnesota, and it went down 5%. Really interesting.
Which begs the question, when we talk on a national scale, are ears in Washington deaf to poverty?
Well, sometimes you feel like that. It's not getting a lot of play in the current political campaigns. I think they're both focused on the middle class always, and not the working poor. So when you look at who's in poverty in Duluth, according to the census, a large number of them, over 40%, are working. They are employed, and they are still—
The working poor.
Absolutely. They are still in poverty. And there's the working poor, and then there's people above the poverty line but still struggling to get by. So those are people in decent jobs who don't have any subsidized housing or food support or child care or any of those things. I mean, the Jobs Now Coalition estimates a family of 3 in the Duluth area needs about $50,000 in annual income to live without any government benefits. And, you know, when you look at the large numbers of, I mean, 17% of everyone in Duluth is below the poverty line, and the poverty line is meager. It's low.
When people talk about poverty, often there's an element of judgment in it. Does it matter if people are in poverty because of bad choices that they made or decisions that they followed through with?
Abramsky, I think I can speak for him. First of all, we all make choices, every one of us, and sometimes things don't work out, and maybe we've made bad choices. Abramsky points out in his book that we're still human beings.
And Tom, with that, we're going to have to leave, but one other question. What's the date for the lecture?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
27th of September, yes.
September 27th. Tom, Angie, thank you very much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's time now for the business headlines from our friends at Business North. Magnetation's chief executive told the Itasca County Board Tuesday that an investor is interested in purchasing the bankrupt company's assets. But Larry Leighton said the potential buyer would not follow through unless it is free of any liability for Magnetation's current or future financial obligations. An attorney representing creditors objected, saying the mining firm has not negotiated a good faith settlement. The Itasca County Board met in special session on the potential sale again this morning, but adjourned without taking action. A bankruptcy court judge could decide Magnetation's fate at a hearing next Tuesday in St. Paul.
Slow retail clothing industry traffic has affected sales for the quarter and year for Duluth-based Maurice's. Total sales for the quarter increased 1%, but comparable store sales declined by 9%. The company did add 14 stores during the fourth quarter. Maurice's experienced challenges in the transition to its new e-commerce platform, which impacted online business. Ascena, Maurice's corporate parent, reported net profit was $13.8 million versus a $323 million loss last year. The corporation's report displeased investors, with the stock price dropping to a 7-year low.
Minnesota congressional candidates Rick Nolan and Stuart Mills agreed little during a Monday forum in Duluth. Mining was the exception, both saying it is important to the region and has their support. Incumbent Democrat Nolan said America has lost its way, spending too much money on endless wars and nation building instead of domestic programs such as Medicare and Social Security. Republican challenger Mills frequently called for tax and regulatory reform, saying Washington is preventing companies from growing. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
So call now if you have a comment on our program. Dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message or send an email to almanacnorth@wdse.org. And don't forget to visit the WDSE website for updates on your favorite programs, news about station events, and listings of the programs available on our 4 digital channels. And Julie, there's a nip in the air and the color in the trees turning beautifully this time of year.
Yes, it is. A nice weekend to maybe get out, take a drive. A number of art tours going on in the area. So lots to do and lots to see.
Isn't that the truth? Thank you very much. For Julie and the crew at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.